Dr. Elara Vance stood before the hydroponics bay viewport, her reflection a ghost against the stardusted velvet of deep space. 6 months. 182 days aboard the research vessel Odyssey, and in that time, she had classified and archived 412 unique xenoflora specimens, successfully mediated a territorial dispute between two silicon-based life forms over a particularly succulent geothermal vent, and, most inexplicably, had become the de facto guardian to 3 apex predator toddlers who, she was quite certain, could rend the ship's hull plating like tissue paper if the mood struck them. The universe, she had concluded, possessed a profoundly whimsical and often perplexing sense of humor. The Odyssey, a leviathan of scientific inquiry, hummed its constant, comforting symphony of recycled air, whirring processors, and the distant thrum of the sublight engines. Elara's boots, worn soft from countless cycles, made a familiar scuffing sound on the polished alloy deck plates as she navigated the corridor. Trailing behind her, moving with a silence that was both instinctual and deeply unnerving, were her diminutive shadows. 3 of them, always 3. Zor, Lyra, and Orion. The Varidian cubs who had, to the utter bewilderment of their clan and the profound mortification of their sire, decided that Elara was their person now. The Varidians were magnificent, formidable beings. As adults, they stood upright, easily reaching 8 feet in height, their bodies covered in sleek, dense fur that ranged from the color of a starless night sky to a deep, royal purple. Their eyes, large and multifaceted, gleamed like polished gemstones, each hue unique to the individual. But it was their claws that defined them. They were not keratin like a terrestrial feline, but complex, crystalline structures that could extend from their fingertips, honed to a monomolecular edge capable of slicing through most known alloys with minimal effort. They were a race of warriors, hunters, and philosophers, living by a code of honor so rigid and labyrinthine that Elara developed a persistent low-grade headache just trying to memorize the basic tenets. And their children, these pint-sized paragons of their species, followed her around like she was some sort of galactic Pied Piper. Dr. Vance. A voice resonated from behind her, deep and sonorous, carrying an authority that made junior officers snap to attention and even made Elara's own spine straighten instinctively. It was not one of the cubs. She turned, a practiced, neutral expression settling on her features. Ambassador Kalen stood in the corridor, a towering monument of Varidian diplomacy and warrior prowess. His fur was the color of a twilight sky, a deep, rich indigo, and his ceremonial armor, a work of art in beaten silver and obsidian, was polished to a mirror sheen. His eyes, the color of molten amber, held an expression she had become intimately familiar with over the past few weeks, a complex cocktail of embarrassment, weary resignation, and a flicker of something that might have been amusement, if a Varidian would ever admit to finding humor in their current predicament. "Ambassador," Elara said, her voice carefully measured. Behind her, she heard the soft, almost inaudible padding of paws on the deck. The cubs, as one, had instinctively melted behind her legs at the sight of their father. It wasn't fear. Varidian parents were fiercely devoted and impossibly gentle with their young. It was the knowledge that they were flagrantly violating their scheduled lessons in the clan's learning den, preferring instead to stalk a human xenobotanist through the ship's corridors. "My offspring," Kalen began, his words laced with the long-suffering tone of parents across 1,000 worlds, "are not in the learning den." "No, Ambassador, they are not," Elara agreed, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth before she suppressed it. "They are, in fact, accompanying me." Again. "Yes," Kalen rumbled, his nose twitching slightly, sampling the air. "To the stellar cartography observation dome yesterday. To the main cargo bay this morning. And now." He paused, his nostrils flaring once more. "You carry the scent of the verdant place. The laboratory with the flora." "I've been working," Elara explained, gesturing vaguely back towards the hydroponics bay. "Cataloging samples from the Cygnus X1 debris field collection. Fascinating stuff. A remarkable amount of bioluminescent chemosynthesis occurring." One of the cubs, Lyra, the most vocal of the 3, let out a soft, chirping sound. In a Varidian cub, it was a simple expression of curiosity. In an adult Varidian, the same vocalization would be a battle cry capable of shattering reinforced plexiglass. Kalen's ears, large and tufted, flattened slightly against his skull. They should not impose upon you, Dr. Vance. It is not appropriate. You are not of our clan. You are not responsible for their supervision. They're not imposing, Elara said, and to her own surprise, she meant it completely. Sure, having 3 alien toddlers with retractable, ship-slicing claws shadowing her every move had required a period of intense adjustment. But they were endearing in their own terrifying, predator-child way. Curious, eager to learn, and the way Lyra would curl up against her side during her short breaks, purring so hard her tiny body vibrated with the effort. Well, that was genuinely adorable. Nevertheless, Kalen began, his tone firm but not unkind. Papa, Zor interrupted, stepping out from behind Elara's legs. He was the boldest of the trio, his small chest puffed out in a comical imitation of his father's formidable presence. His fur was the color of a moonless night, just like his sire's, and his claws, still small and blunt, already showed the crystalline structure they would develop upon maturity. Elara shows us human things. Learning. We are learning. You are supposed to learn in the learning den, Kalen said, though his voice had softened almost imperceptibly. With the instructors. Learning den is boring, Orion added. He was the thoughtful one, the observer, the one who asked questions that stretched Elara's knowledge of physics, biology, and philosophy to their absolute limits. His fur was a lighter shade, a soft, smoky gray that shimmered under the ship's lights. Elara's plants are not boring. Elara's plants make air. That is important. Kalen looked at Elara. Elara looked at Kalen. In the silent, charged space between them, a universal truth was acknowledged. Arguing with determined children was a losing proposition, regardless of species. Perhaps, the ambassador said slowly, the words clearly chosen with care, we might establish structured learning time with Dr. Vance. If she is willing. I'm willing, Elara said, because what other answer was there? Besides, the cubs had grown on her like very sharp, very mobile, and surprisingly affectionate barnacles. Still, Kalen said, and inclined his head, a gesture of profound respect in Varidian culture, the equivalent of a deeply grateful nod. He then departed, his footsteps surprisingly silent for a being of his immense size. Okay, you 3, Elara said, looking down at her small, furry entourage. I have been in the lab for 10 standard hours. I smell like nutrient paste and ozone. I am going to my quarters and I am going to take a sonic shower, and you 3 are going back to the learning den. 3 pairs of gemstone-like eyes stared up at her. Zor's amber, Orion's emerald green, Lyra's pale sapphire blue. The cubs had perfected the art of the pathetic, pleading look. It was devastatingly effective. Fine, Elara sighed, feeling her resolve crumble. You can walk me to my quarters. But then, straight back to the learning den. Deal. Deal. Zor said, his standard still heavily accented but clear as a bell. The cubs were linguistic sponges, absorbing languages at an astonishing rate. Elara's quarters were modest by the ship's standards, a testament to her civilian status. A small bedroom with a built-in sleeping pod, a compact sitting area with a desk and data terminal, and a refresher unit that, by deep space exploration standards, was practically luxurious. It had an actual water-based shower, a rare extravagance made possible by the Odyssey's state-of-the-art water reclamation and purification systems. She cherished it. All right, she said, keying open her door. This is where we part ways. I will see you 3 tomorrow for our structured learning time. The cubs, like furry little guided missiles, slipped past her legs and into her quarters before she could finish her sentence. No, wait. That's not. Elara began, but it was too late. She sighed, a long, weary exhalation. You can't just invite yourselves into people's private rooms. Lyra chirped, already investigating Elara's small bookshelf with the intense focus of a research scientist. The cub was tiny, even for her age, with cream-colored fur and those enormous, captivating blue eyes. She reached up with one paw, her claws carefully sheathed, and patted a physical book, an actual paper book, a collection of ancient terrestrial poetry that her grandmother had given her before she embarked on this mission. "Careful with that," Elara said, moving quickly to gently guide the cub's paw away. "It's very old. It's fragile." "What is?" "Fragile," Lyra asked, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It breaks easily," Elara explained, looking around for a simple analogy. "Like an egg." "Egg," Lyra repeated solemnly, then turned to her brothers. "Zor, Orion, this is like egg. Do not touch." The two male cubs, who had been poking their noses into a data slate on Elara's desk, immediately backed away from everything as if it were radioactive. Varidians took warnings about fragility with the utmost seriousness. Their own young were robust, incredibly difficult to injure. The concept that an object could be so delicate was treated with the kind of reverence humans reserved for high-yield explosives. Elara's personal communicator chirped. She glanced at the message flashing on the small screen, a priority request from the ship's astrophysics department for her analysis of the bioluminescent properties of the Cygnus samples. Needed by 0600. Of course. She looked at the cubs, now sitting in a neat, attentive row on her floor, watching her with unblinking, multifaceted eyes. 20 minutes, she told them, her voice firm. "I need to shower and change. Then I will personally walk you back to the learning den. You can stay here, but you have to be quiet. And you cannot touch anything." "Understood." 3 heads nodded in unison. "I mean it. Nothing fragile. Actually, nothing at all. Just sit there." "Can you do that?" "Yes, Elara," they chorused in perfect, chilling unison. She should have known better. The refresher was small but functional, with a shower stall, a sonic cleanser unit, and the usual sanitation facilities. Elara peeled off her uniform, a practical, one-piece ship S-suit in a drab shade of gray, and tossed it into the recycler. She could hear the cubs outside, making soft, conversational chittering sounds to each other in their native tongue. It sounded peaceful enough. She stepped into the shower stall, pressed the control panel, and let out a blissful sigh as hot water cascaded over her shoulders. Heaven. Absolute heaven. 6 months in space, and a hot water shower was still the single greatest luxury in her life. The steam rose around her, clouding the small stall. She reached for the soap, a real, chemically derived bar of soap, not the standard sonic cleaning gel, and started scrubbing away the day's accumulated grime and frustration. She was humming a tuneless old folk song, eyes closed, when she heard it. It wasn't a human scream. It was a Varidian distress call, high-pitched, piercing, and filled with a primal terror that cut through the sound of the running water. It was the sound cubs made when they were in genuine, life-threatening danger. Elara's eyes snapped open just in time to see her refresher door, which she had locked, or so she had thought, burst inwards with a sickening crunch of splintered metal and torn wiring. 3 small, furry bodies launched themselves at her. "Elara, no!" Zor yelled, his voice cracking with fear. "The water attacks. Skyfall." Orion shrieked, using the Varidian term for a deadly natural phenomenon. Lyra simply latched onto Elara's leg with all 4 limbs, her claws carefully retracted, but her grip iron-tight, making small, whimpering sounds that Elara's universal translator couldn't even process. "What?" "Stop. I'm fine." Elara yelped, trying to maintain her balance on the wet, slick tile. Water was spraying everywhere. The cubs were everywhere. Zor had somehow, impossibly, scaled the slick shower wall and was swiping frantically at the shower head with his claws, trying to... Oh, God. He was trying to destroy it. "Get down from there." Elara yelled, grabbing for him. She slipped on a bar of soap and would have fallen hard if Orion hadn't, with a speed that defied his small size, positioned himself as a furry, 4-legged cushion. She grabbed the shower wall for support, soap stinging her eyes, while 3 soaking wet cubs clambered over her in their frantic, misguided rescue attempt. "It hurts you," Lyra wailed, still attached to her leg like a barnacle. "Water hurts, Elara." "It doesn't hurt." Elara sputtered. "Zor, stop attacking the shower." "No, don't." The shower head came loose in a violent spray of water and a shower of sparks. The emergency sensors in the ceiling immediately started blaring. And then, because the universe clearly had a personal vendetta against her, the refresher door, already hanging off its hinges, was blown completely off its frame as adult Varidian warriors burst through. Ambassador Kalen was in the lead, his claws fully extended and gleaming, his eyes wild with the kind of primal fury that made Elara understand, on a visceral level, exactly why his species had never lost a war in its recorded history. Behind him came 2 more warriors, both in full combat stance, plasma pistols drawn, scanning for unseen threats. They all froze. The scene that greeted them was one of pure, unadulterated chaos. Elara stood there, dripping wet, desperately trying to cover herself with her hands, with 3 soaking wet, hysterical cubs clinging to various parts of her anatomy. Water sprayed from the destroyed shower head, creating an indoor rainstorm. The alarm continued its piercing wail. Soap suds coated every surface. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Somewhere in the corridor outside, Elara could hear the sound of running footsteps and confused shouts in Standard. Elara said, her voice very small and very calm. "Can explain." Kalen's claws slowly, one by one, retracted. His ears, which had been flat against his skull in combat mode, gradually rose to their normal, alert position. He looked at his cubs, drenched, clinging to the naked human, then at the destroyed refresher, then back at Elara. A muscle in his jaw twitched. "Please do," he said, his voice dangerously level. An hour later, Elara sat in Conference Room Gamma, wearing a borrowed ship S-suit that was 2 sizes too large, with her hair still dripping onto her shoulders. Across the long, polished table sat Ambassador Kalen and 3 other Varidian elders, their expressions ranging from confused to horrified to, in the case of one silver-furred female, a valiant attempt to suppress what looked suspiciously like amusement. The cubs had been removed, protesting loudly, by their mortified caretakers. Elara could still hear Lyra's mournful wails echoing down the corridor. "But Elara needs us. The Skywater will eat her." "Let me see if I understand correctly," said Elder Vexia, a silver-furred female whose age was marked by the intricate, glowing patterns in her crystalline claws. "You were standing under falling water." "Intentionally." "Yes," Elara said, feeling a flush creep up her neck. "Hot water." "For pleasure?" Vexia asked, her tail twitching in a way Elara had learned signified profound skepticism. Elara paused. "Well, also for hygiene, but—" "Yes." The 4 Varidians exchanged a look that clearly communicated, what in the name of the Great Void is wrong with these humans? "We cleanse ourselves through mineral dust immersion," Kalen said slowly, as if explaining a basic concept to a very slow child. "The particulate matter absorbs oils and debris from our fur. It is efficient. It is effective. It does not involve willingly subjecting oneself to liquid precipitation." "Right," Elara said. "Humans are different. We need water to clean properly. It's normal for us." "The cubs," Elder Vexia continued, ignoring her explanation, "believed you were under attack." "I gathered that," Elara said dryly. "They breached a locked door to rescue me." "They were very brave," Elara offered, feeling a strange need to defend them. "They saw water falling from above and assumed a threat," Kalen said, and now Elara could hear something new in his voice. Not anger, but something else. A deep, resonant sorrow. On our homeworld, Varidia, water falling from above means the skylakes have ruptured. It happens during the storm season. The water comes with such force, it can strip flesh from bone. Cubs are taught from hatching to flee from falling water, to seek shelter, to protect the clan. Oh. Oh, no. Elara's chest tightened. The cubs hadn't been overreacting or being silly. They had seen something that, in their cultural context, represented genuine, mortal danger, and they had run toward it anyway, trying to save her. I didn't know, Elara said quietly, the shame washing over her. I'm so sorry. If I had known, I would have explained beforehand. You could not have known, Kalen interrupted, his voice softer now. We did not think to mention it. Who would imagine that humans voluntarily recreate the conditions of our most deadly natural disaster inside small, enclosed spaces for enjoyment? Elder Vexia made a sound that might have been a snort. The issue, said another elder, a male with dark red fur, is not the water ritual. The issue is that the cubs have bonded to you, Dr. Vance. This is unprecedented. They follow her constantly, Kalen added. They seek her approval. They become distressed when separated from her. And now, they have attempted to protect her at risk to themselves. He leaned forward, his amber eyes intense and piercing. In our culture, cubs only behave this way toward clan leaders. Toward those they trust absolutely to keep them safe. It is instinctual. Biological. They cannot control it. I didn't do anything to encourage it, Elara said quickly, feeling defensive. I've been professional. I've maintained appropriate boundaries. We know, Kalen said. That is what makes this so significant. They chose you, Doctor. You did not choose them. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Elara's mind raced. What happens now? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. The elders looked at each other. A complex, wordless communication passed between them, a subtle shift of posture, a flick of an ear, a glance. Finally, Elder Vexia spoke. Now you must decide if you will accept the responsibility. What responsibility? The cubs see you as clan, Kalen said. As family. To reject them now would cause severe psychological damage. They are young enough that such a rejection would scar their development, make them unstable. His ears flattened slightly. But to accept them means you must learn our ways. Understand how to guide Varidian young. You must become, in essence, clan-bonded. Not fully. You are not Varidian. But enough to fulfill your role in their eyes. Elara's mind reeled. You are asking me to. What, exactly? Become their guardian. Their clan sister. Clan sister is the correct term, Elder Vexia corrected. Kalen remains their sire, their primary authority. But you would be recognized as family, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. She leaned forward, her ancient eyes holding Elara's. This has never been offered to an outsider. Never in our entire recorded history. It is only being considered now because the alternative is worse. Elara looked at Kalen. What do you want me to do? The ambassador's formidable expression softened, just a fraction. I want my cubs to be whole and healthy. If that means accepting that they have chosen a human as clan. He spread his large, three-fingered hands, his claws catching the light. The universe provides what we need, not always what we expect. Can I think about it? Elara asked. Of course, Kalen said. But not for long. The cubs are already asking for you. They let her go after that, with promises to reconvene the next cycle. Elara wandered back to her quarters, now with a maintenance crew noisily repairing her demolished refresher door. In a day's time, clan bonded to 3 alien cubs. That had definitely not been in her mission briefing. She found Chief Engineer Eva Rostova in the mess hall, eating something that technically qualified as food but looked like it had given up on life long ago. The chief glanced up as Elara approached, her weathered face creasing into a wry smile. Heard you had an exciting shower, she said, her voice a low, gravelly rumble. News travels fast, Elara muttered, slumping into the seat across from her. 3 cubs screaming about Skywater attacking their favorite human. The entire ship heard. I've had 6 people ask me if I'm starting a daycare. Rostova's expression shifted from amusement to concern. They thought the shower was dangerous. On their homeworld, falling water is a death sentence. Really, really bad, Elara explained, resting her head in her hands. And they tried to save me anyway. Zor destroyed the shower head with his claws. He is 4 years old, and their developmental cycle. Brave kids, Rostova said. Terrifying kids, Elara corrected. They want me to become clan-bonded, Elara said, the words feeling alien on her tongue. Officially recognized as part of their family structure. The chief engineer put her fork down with a clatter. That's significant. That's insane. I'm a xenobotanist, not a parent. I study plants. Plants don't climb you and purr and try to rescue you from perfectly safe bathing facilities. You like them, though? Rostova asked. It wasn't a question. Elara sighed. Yeah, I do. They're sweet and curious and surprisingly funny once you get used to the whole apex predator thing. Lyra has been teaching me Varidian lullabies. Orion asks me about everything. Why is the sky black in space? How do plants know which way is up? Can humans see in the dark? And Zor. She smiled despite herself. Zor keeps trying to protect me from things. Yesterday, he positioned himself between me and a maintenance bot because he thought it was threatening. Sounds like you've already decided, Rostova said gently. I haven't decided anything, Elara protested. This is a massive responsibility. What if I mess up? What if I teach them something wrong, or don't understand their needs? Or Elara, Rostova's voice was firm but kind. You're overthinking this. Those cubs chose you because they saw something in you that made them feel safe. Trust that instinct. And trust yourself. Elara spent the rest of the evening in her quarters, now with a temporary, much less luxurious refresher unit, reading everything she could access about Varidian child-rearing, cultural protocols, and clan dynamics. The more she read, the more overwhelmed she felt. There were rules about feeding times, sleep cycles, proper discipline methods, honor teachings, combat training schedules. It was a lifetime of learning compressed into a single, terrifying document. A soft chime at her door interrupted her research spiral. She opened it to find Lyra standing there alone, looking impossibly small and lost in the wide corridor. The cub's blue eyes were enormous and shimmering with what Elara recognized as tears. Lyra, honey, where are your brothers? Where is your father? They sleep, Lyra said quietly. I cannot sleep. I worry. Worry about what? The little cub stepped inside, and Elara automatically crouched down to her level. You are hurt because we broke your water room. You will send us away. You will not want us anymore. Elara's heart cracked clean in half. Oh, sweetheart. No. Come here. She pulled the cub into her arms, feeling the soft fur, the rapid heartbeat, the tiny body that was trying so hard to be brave. Lyra buried her face in Elara's shoulder and made a sound halfway between a whimper and a purr. I'm not hurt, Elara murmured, stroking the cub's cream-colored fur. And I could never, ever not want you. You tried to save me. That was the bravest thing I have ever seen. Really? Lyra pulled back, searching Elara's face. Really, Elara confirmed. So, you will be our clan sister? The cub asked, her voice trembling with hope. You will stay. And there it was. The question that mattered. Elara thought about her quiet life before the cubs. Her orderly lab, her predictable schedule, her uncomplicated existence among plants that didn't have opinions or emotions, or the ability to destroy plumbing. Then she thought about never hearing Lyra's laugh again, or Orion's endless questions, or seeing Zor's proud expression when he learned something new. Yeah, Elara said softly, a sense of rightness settling over her. I'll stay. The bonding ceremony was scheduled for 5 cycles later, which gave Elara just enough time to panic, unpanic, repanic, and finally achieve a state of resigned acceptance that her life had taken a very, very weird turn. In those 5 days, she spent structured, officially sanctioned time with the cubs. They showed her their favorite games, which mostly involved pouncing on things and mock-hunting drills. She taught them about human music, which produced mixed results. Lyra adored it, swaying to the rhythm with her eyes half-closed in bliss. Zor tolerated it, but clearly preferred the Varidian war chants. Orion found the entire concept fascinating and wanted to know how sound waves worked and why certain frequencies produced emotional responses in the human brain. She also learned about Varidian food, which was an experience. "You cook it?" Zor asked, staring at the heated meal Elara had prepared for herself in the mess hall. "You make the food hot on purpose." "Humans digest cooked food better," Elara explained, taking a bite of what passed for chicken on a starship. "It breaks down the proteins, makes them easier for our systems to process." All 3 cubs looked nauseated. "But the nutrients," Orion said slowly, his nose wrinkled in distaste. "They are damaged by heat. The enzymes are destroyed. How do you survive?" "Different biology," Elara said with a shrug. "We've been cooking our food for millennia. Our digestive systems evolved around it." Lyra poked at Elara's meal with one carefully sheathed claw, fascinated and repulsed in equal measure. "It smells wrong." "To you, maybe," Elara said. "To me, your food smells like—" She caught herself. "Actually, let us not go there. Different species, different preferences. That's what makes the universe interesting, right?" The cubs shared a look that clearly communicated, humans are so weird. But they nodded politely, a sign of their respect for her. It was during one of these learning sessions in the ship's main observation dome that everything went wrong. Elara was showing the cubs how to identify stellar cartography markers, or what passed for constellations when you were in deep space, when the first alarm sounded. Not the gentle chime of a routine drill, but the harsh, urgent blare that meant actual, immediate danger. "All personnel, to emergency stations." Captain Novak's voice came over the ship-wide calm, clipped, and professional. "We have sustained unanticipated damage to Sector Gamma. Repeat, damage to Sector Gamma. Engineering teams respond. All non-essential personnel, shelter in place." The lights flickered. The ship shuddered violently. A groaning sound of stressed metal made Elara's teeth ache. "Elara." Lyra pressed against her leg. All 3 cubs were suddenly alert, their ears swiveling to track sounds Elara couldn't even hear, their bodies tensing. "It's okay," Elara said automatically, even though she had no idea if it was okay. "We just need to another impact. Harder this time." The observation dome's reinforced plasteel windows showed a brief flash of something. Debris, maybe, or micrometeorite fragments colliding with the ship's shields. "Sector Gamma breach confirmed," came a different voice over the comm hull breach in sections Gamma 7, Gamma 8, and Gamma 9. "Life support compromised in those sections." Section Gamma 8. That was where they were. Elara's blood went cold as the doors to the observation dome slammed shut with a deafening pneumatic hiss. Emergency seals engaging. Through the small, reinforced window in the door, she could see crew members running, hear the distant sounds of organized chaos. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in a dim, red glow. The cubs had clustered around Elara, their eyes reflecting the red light like mirrors, suddenly looking far more predator than child. "Elara," Zor said, his voice steady but small. "What is happening?" "The ship hit something," Elara said, forcing her voice to remain calm. "Space debris, probably. It damages the hull sometimes. The crew will fix it." "But we are trapped," Orion observed, his analytical mind already processing the situation. He was looking at the sealed doors, at the emergency panels that had slammed down over the observation windows. "Temporarily," Elara said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Just until they make sure it's safe. She tried her personal communicator. Dead. Whatever had happened had taken out local communications in this section. She moved to the door's control panel, entered her access code. The screen flashed red. Emergency lockdown. Atmospheric contamination detected. Life support at minimal levels. That was less than ideal. Elara looked around the observation dome with new eyes. It was a beautiful space, designed for crew recreation and morale. Comfortable seating, large windows for stargazing, and, in the corners, decorative plants. Plants. Elara's mind shifted into overdrive. She was a xenobotanist. She spent her life studying how different plant species processed atmospheric gases. And right now, she was trapped in a room with failing life support and 3 alien children who were depending on her to keep them alive. She could work with this. Okay, Elara said, moving toward the decorative plants with a sudden, fierce purpose. Change of plans. We're going to do some science. Science. Lyra perked up slightly. The cubs had learned that when Elara said science, interesting things usually happened. Life support is failing, Elara explained, seeing no point in sugarcoating it. The cubs were young, but they weren't stupid. That means the air in here is going to get bad. Too much carbon dioxide, not enough oxygen. We will suffocate, Zor said matter-of-factly. Varidians did not dance around death, their culture considered it dishonest and dishonorable. Not if I can help it, Elara said. She was examining the plants now. 2 large, fern-like specimens from a planet in the Kepler system, some kind of ivy native to the Andromeda galaxy, and a small, sapling-like tree she recognized as a genetically engineered terraform oak. Plants produce oxygen through photosynthesis. Usually, it's a slow process, but I can accelerate it. We just need light, water, and the right conditions. How? Orion was beside her now, his green eyes bright with curiosity despite the circumstances. The emergency lighting isn't strong enough for rapid photosynthesis, Elara said, thinking out loud. But this is an observation dome. Those windows are polarized, not blocked. And we're near a star system. I can see the light from here. If I can override the polarization, increase the light levels in here. She moved to the window controls. They were partially functional despite the lockdown. Her fingers flew over the interface, bypassing safety protocols she'd learned in basic training, accessing systems she technically wasn't authorized to touch. The windows gradually cleared, unpolarizing. Starlight flooded the room. Not as bright as direct sunlight, but enough. The temperature immediately started rising. Good, Elara muttered. Good. That's good. Now, water. The emergency system should have. Yes. There. She found the emergency supply locker, pulled out sealed water containers. The cubs watched, silent and focused, as Elara began arranging the plants in the brightest spots near the windows, watering them heavily, adjusting their positions for maximum light exposure. What can we do? Zor asked, his small chest puffed out. We want to help. Elara looked at the 3 small faces, saw the fear they were trying so hard to hide behind Varidian bravery, and made a decision. Those plants over there, she pointed to the corners where more decorative flora waited. Bring them to me. Carefully. We need all of them in the light. The cubs moved with purpose, their natural grace and surprising strength making the work easier. Lyra, despite being the smallest, managed to drag a potted plant nearly as big as she was. Orion carefully transported the more delicate specimens. Zor worked with a focused intensity, his young face set in determined lines. They worked together in the red-tinted light, human and alien, building a makeshift life support system from houseplants and sheer determination. My sire says, Lyra said as she positioned another pot, that humans are not warriors, that you are soft. We are soft, Elara agreed, checking the arrangement. No claws. No natural armor, no enhanced senses. Your people are much stronger than mine. But you know plant things, Orion said. You know how to make air from green growing. That is not soft. That is clever. Different kinds of strength, Elara said. She could already feel the air quality changing. Subtle, but real. The plants were responding to the light, to the water, beginning their chemical magic. Your people are strong in combat. Mine are strong in adaptation. Neither is better, just different. The ship shuddered again. Something exploded in the distance, muffled by walls and vacuum. The cubs pressed closer to Elara, instinct overriding their brave facades. Tell us a story, Lyra whispered. Please. Like you do at sleep time. So Elara did. She told them about ancient humans who looked up at stars and imagined shapes, who created stories to explain the universe before they understood the science. She told them about explorers who crossed vast oceans in wooden ships, about inventors who dreamed of flying, about scientists who asked questions nobody else thought to ask. And as she talked, the plants kept working, kept breathing, kept producing oxygen that might, just might, buy them enough time for rescue. An hour passed, then two. The cubs were getting drowsy, the stress and fear catching up with them despite their best efforts. Elara felt it too, the headache that came with poor air quality, the lethargy creeping into her limbs. But the plants were holding. The oxygen levels were stable enough, if barely. Elara, Orion said suddenly, his ears perking up. Do you smell that? She sniffed. Smoke. Faint, but distinct. Fire, Zor said, on his feet instantly, his body tense. In the next room. The wall is warm. Elara pressed her hand against the wall he indicated. Heat radiated through the metal. Whatever had happened in the adjacent lab, it was burning now. And fire in a contained space with limited oxygen meant. The ship's automated voice crackled through the emergency speakers. Fire detected in Sector Gamma 8. Initiating emergency vent protocol in 60 seconds. All personnel evaluate immediately. Elara's blood turned to ice. Emergency vent meant opening the entire sector to the vacuum of space, using the absence of oxygen to kill the fire. It was effective. It was also lethal to anyone still inside. No. No, no, no. She lunged for the control panel, trying to override the protocol. Her hands shook as she entered code after code, each one rejected. Locked. Override requires captain authorization. 50 seconds. She slammed her hand against the comm button, praying it would work, even though her personal communicator was dead. This is Dr. Elara Vance in the observation dome, Sector Gamma 8. We are still in here. 3 cubs and myself. We are alive. Cancel the emergency vent. Repeat, cancel the emergency vent. Static. 40 seconds. The cubs understood what was happening. Lyra started to cry, the sound breaking Elara's heart. Orion had gone very still, his analytical mind probably calculating survival odds and finding them wanting. Zor moved to the door, started clawing at it with growing desperation, his small claw scraping uselessly against reinforced metal. 30 seconds. Please, Elara whispered to no one, to the universe, to whatever might be listening. Please, not them. They're just babies. 20 seconds. Elara looked at the cubs, at the fear in their eyes that they were trying so hard to hide behind Varidian dignity, and something fierce ignited in her chest. No. Absolutely not. She had not become clan sister to these children just to watch them die because of an automated system that couldn't tell the difference between empty space and occupied space. Zor, Orion, Lyra, listen to me, she said, dropping to her knees, grabbing their attention. The manual override panel. Up there. Near the ceiling, by the emergency vent shaft. Can you reach it? 15 seconds. Orion's head snapped up, following her gaze. The panel was small, recessed into the wall about 10 feet up, designed to be inaccessible during normal operations. But Varidian cubs could climb like their lives depended on it. Because right now, they did. I see it, Orion said. It requires a 5-digit code and a physical switch activation, Elara said rapidly, her mind racing through emergency protocols she studied but never thought she'd need. The switch has to be held for 3 seconds. Can you do that? 10 seconds. What is the code? Zor was already moving, scaling the wall with his claws extended, using the smallest imperfections in the surface as handholds. Orion followed, and Lyra, not to be left behind, scrambled after her brothers with terrified determination. 59238, Elara called out, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. Her arm throbbed. She slammed it against the control panel earlier, possibly fractured something. But that didn't matter now. 5 seconds. The switch. Where is the switch? Zor's voice was high with panic as his claws pried open the panel. Cover. Small fingers, designed for hunting, but used now for salvation, fumbled with the keypad. Red handle, left side. Pull it down and hold it. 3 seconds. I cannot reach. Zor grunted. Orion, you do the code. I will pull. The cubs worked with the kind of coordination that came from being clan, from growing up as a unit. Orion's claws tapped rapidly on the keypad while Zor stretched, his small body at its absolute limit, grasping for the emergency handle. 2 seconds. Elara saw his claws catch the handle, saw him pull with every ounce of strength in his small body. 1 second. The automated voice cut off midword. The warning lights stopped flashing. The emergency vent protocol disengaged with a pneumatic hiss that sounded like the universe exhaling in relief. The cubs tumbled from the wall in a heap of fur and claws and exhausted sobs. Elara caught Lyra, cushioned Orion's fall, and pulled Zor against her chest as he shook with the aftermath of terror. You did it. Elara breathed, holding them close, her own hands trembling. You absolute, brave, brilliant children. You did it. We saved us, Lyra whispered. You saved all of us, Elara corrected. The door exploded inward, not from malfunction this time, but from Varidian warriors cutting through it with plasma torches. Ambassador Kalen came through first, his eyes wild, his claws fully extended, followed by a full security team and Captain Novak herself. They stopped dead at the scene before them. Elara on her knees, cradling 3 exhausted cubs, surrounded by carefully arranged plants in a room that should have been dead, but somehow still held breathable air. Elara, the captain said, moving forward, her dark eyes scanning for injuries. When you didn't evaluate, we thought the fire protocols had activated. We couldn't evaluate, Elara said, her voice sounding distant to her own ears, shock setting in. Communications were down. The door was sealed. I tried to override the vent protocol, but I couldn't reach the manual controls. Kalen was staring at his cubs, at the high wall they climbed, at the open emergency panel still swinging on its hinges. They climbed, he said, his voice rough with emotion. They reached the manual override. Zor pulled the switch, Elara said, pride cutting through the fear and exhaustion. Orion entered the code. Lyra climbed with them. Even though she was terrified. They saved our lives. The ambassador dropped to his knees, a gesture of profound significance in Varidian culture. Warriors did not kneel. He opened his arms. The cubs launched themselves at their father, and the 4 of them dissolved into a tangle of relieved purrs and Varidian endearments. But Lyra pulled away after a moment, toddled back to Elara, and grabbed her hand with a sticky paw. Elara saved us first, the cub said firmly. Made air with green growing. Was clever. Humans are not warriors, Orion added, leaning against his father but looking at Elara. But they are survivors. Elara showed us strength is not only claws, Zor said. He said nothing more, but his amber eyes held something new. Respect. The kind that Varidians reserved for proven packmates. Medical teams descended then, scanning everyone, insisting Elara come to the med bay for her arm. Chief Rostova showed up looking harried and relieved in equal measure, running a scanner over the cubs, even as they protested that they were fine, perfectly fine, and could they please go with Elara. Your clan sister needs medical attention, Kaylin told them gently. We will see her soon. I promise. Lyra's eyes were enormous. I promise, sweetheart, Elara said. I'm just going to get my arm fixed. I'll come find you as soon as I'm done. It took Dr. Eris Thorne, the ship's chief medical officer, 20 minutes to confirm what Elara already knew: a simple hairline fracture, easily treated with a regenerative gel and a temporary cast. The entire time, Rostova kept shaking her head and muttering about xenobotanists who turned observation domes into oxygen farms. You use decorative houseplants, she said for the third time, as if she couldn't quite believe it. Common decorative flora to sustain 4 people for over 2 hours in failing life support. Different light conditions require different photosynthetic rates, Elara explained, exhausted but unable to stop the technical explanation from flowing. I calculated the minimum oxygen production necessary, factoring in our combined respiratory needs. The cubs actually breathe more efficiently than humans. Their homeworld has a thinner atmosphere. I arranged the plants to maximize light exposure. It was basic xenobotany, really. It was brilliant, Rostova said. And insane. And brilliant. 3 cycles later, the ship had been repaired, the investigation into the debris strike completed, and Elara stood in the observation dome, now cleaned and restored, wearing ceremonial clothes she'd been provided by the Varidians. The bonding ceremony had been postponed, but not cancelled. If anything, the near-death experience had made it more important. The room was packed. Human crew members lined one side, Varidians the other. Captain Novak stood near the front, having insisted on attending despite her packed schedule. Chief Rostova had somehow procured actual refreshments. Elara's grandmother appeared on a view screen, patched in from multiple light years away, her eyes bright with tears she was trying to hide. And in the center of it all, 3 cubs sat in a formal row, freshly groomed, wearing tiny ceremonial collars that marked them as cubs of the Kaylin clan. Elder Vexia conducted the ceremony in both Varidian and Standard, her ancient voice carrying through the room. We are clan, she began, not by blood alone, but by choice, by loyalty, by bonds that transcend species and origin. Today, we recognize what these cubs understood before we did. That family is not defined by similarity, but by willingness to protect, to teach, to stand together against the void. There were ritual words, ancient phrases that Elara had practiced phonetically until her tongue hurt. There was the resonance ceremony, which was exactly as strange as Elara had feared. Kaylin brought out a small, intricately carved crystal that hummed with a low frequency. They all placed a hand on it, and for a moment, Elara felt a strange, echoing connection to the 3 Varidians, a sense of shared space and purpose. The cubs thought it was hilarious. But the moment that mattered came at the end, when Kaylin placed a small, crystalline claw, carefully preserved from his own molting as a cub, on a chain around Elara's neck. You are clan bonded, he said formally. My cubs are yours to guide and protect. Your victories are our victories. Your failures are ours to shoulder together. This bond is not broken by distance or time, but only by death. And even then, his voice softened, we carry each other in memory. Lyra immediately launched herself at Elara, purring so loudly that people in the back of the room could hear it. Orion and Zor followed with slightly more dignity, but no less enthusiasm. Does this mean? Lyra asked, her blue eyes sparkling. We can follow you everywhere again. Elara looked at Kaylin, who shrugged, a gesture he'd picked up from humans. Within reason, Elara said. And with some new rules. Like, for instance, when I shower, you wait outside. But what if the Skywater attacks again? Zor asked, perfectly serious. Then I will yell very loudly, and you can rescue me. Deal. Deal. Later, after the ceremony had dissolved into something more like a party, with humans and Varidians mingling in ways that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago, Elara found herself back at the observation windows. The stars stretched out before her, infinite and strange. Captain Novak joined her, holding 2 glasses, something amber in each. "You know, this changes everything," the captain said quietly. "The mission, the diplomatic relationships. You've done what years of formal negotiations couldn't. You've shown them that humans are worth trusting." "I just kept 3 kids alive," Elara protested. "You did it with plants and cleverness and determination," Novak countered. "You showed them that our kind of strength matters. And those cubs," the captain smiled, "they showed their people that different doesn't mean wrong." Elara touched the crystal claw at her throat. Across the room, she could see the cubs demonstrating their climbing skills to an impressed group of human engineers. Kalen was watching them, his expression a mixture of paternal pride and exasperation. "They thought the rain was attacking me," Elara said, starting to laugh. "They destroyed my bathroom trying to save me from a shower." "And you nearly died together," Novak added. "And you saved each other. That's clan, right?" "Yeah," Elara said softly, watching Lyra successfully climb up a wall-mounted monitor while humans cheered. "That's clan." The universe, she decided, still had a twisted sense of humor. But maybe, just maybe, sometimes the cosmic jokes turned into something beautiful. Something like family.